You just heard the raw frustration that echoed across the entire WNBA fan base. The feeling that the deciding Game 5 between the Indiana Fever and the Las Vegas Aces wasn't just a loss. It was a robbery. For days, everyone has been focused on the phantom fouls, the lopsided calls, and Aliyah Boston being forced to watch the final critical moments from the bench. But what if I told you the real smoking gunned-up piece of evidence that exposes the entire officiating scandal didn't come from a referee's whistle, but from the mouth of the winning team's biggest star? Today, we're going to connect the dots and show you the one comment from A'ja Wilson that she probably wishes she could take back. A comment that not only validates every fan's suspicion, but also reveals a stunning level of hypocrisy at the heart of the league's officiating crisis. This is the story of how A'ja Wilson's own words became the ultimate proof that the WNBA referee bias is real. We live for digging into the story behind the story here. So if you believe that context is everything, do me a favor and smash that like button right now. It's a simple click that tells us you want more investigations that filter out the noise and get to the truth. All right, let's quickly set the stage, because to understand the weight of A'ja Wilson's comment, you have to appreciate the absolute chaos the Indiana Fever endured in that final game. This wasn't just a team playing shorthanded, it was a MASH unit fighting for its life. They went into the game with 6 season-ending injuries already on the books, including their generational talent, Caitlin Clark. They were relying on players signed to hardship contracts just to fill the roster. Then, the game itself descended into a nightmare. In the third quarter, their offensive engine, Kelsey Mitchell, collapsed on the court with a rare medical condition that left her unable to feel her legs, and she was rushed to the hospital. Yet, somehow, the Fever refused to die. They battled back, led by an unbelievable 27-point performance from Odyssey Sim, the very player on that hardship contract. They fought the 2-time defending champions to a standstill, and that's when the whistles took over. The foul disparity was glaring all night, but the final blow came with just 26 seconds left in a tied game. Aliyah Boston, their all-star center, was called for her 6th foul while battling for a rebound. The call stood, Boston was out, and the Aces were given the lead at the free throw line. It felt, to thousands of viewers, like a targeted takedown. That injustice is the story everyone has been talking about. But as narrative analysts, our job is to filter out the surface-level noise and find the signal. And the signal here wasn't the final foul on Boston. It was a comment made by A'ja Wilson just one game earlier, a comment that blows this entire controversy wide open. To find it, we have to rewind to after Game 4. Now, remember, the Fever won Game 4, and in that contest, the officiating narrative was completely flipped. Aliyah Boston was getting to the line, drawing fouls. And for once, the whistle seemed to be on Indiana's side. After that loss, a frustrated A'ja Wilson was asked about the officiating and the foul disparity. And this is what she said. Aliyah did say, "I have a special whistle." And she shot 13 today. Let that sink in. The league's 2-time MVP, the face of the defending champion Spurs, went on the record and openly suggested that her opponent was the beneficiary of a special whistle, a term for preferential treatment from the referees. She was, in that moment, validating the idea that officiating in the WNBA isn't always fair and balanced. She was arguing that some players get a different, better set of rules. On its own, it's a competitive, maybe even salty, post-game comment. But when you place it next to what happened in Game 5, it becomes a stunning act of hypocrisy. Because in the very next game, the deciding game of the series, the special whistle magically switched sides. Suddenly, it was A'ja Wilson living at the free throw line, taking 10 shots from the stripe. It was Aliyah Boston getting hit with phantom fouls. The exact scenario Aja had complained about just 48 hours earlier was now the very thing winning her team a trip to the WNBA Finals. And that right there is the moment this stops being a simple story about bad calls. Aja Wilson's own words provided the framework. She didn't just complain about fouls, she gave the phenomenon a name. And in doing so, she confirmed what frustrated fans have been screaming for years, that the special whistle is real. She just never expected her own definition to be used against her. But for the narrative analysts watching, this is where we have to connect the dots to an even bigger story. Because Aja Wilson's comment and the Game 5 officiating did not happen in a vacuum. They were the explosive finale to a league-wide officiating crisis that had been boiling over throughout the entire 2025 playoffs. Just days before the Fever Aces series reached its breaking point, another top coach, Cheryl Reeve of the Minnesota Lynx, was suspended for a game after she went scorched earth on the referees in a press conference. She didn't just disagree with a few calls, she called the officiating F-ing awful, and said for the league's leadership to deem the crew playoff worthy was F-ing malpractice. That act of rebellion sent shockwaves through the league. But here's the critical piece of information the mainstream media isn't connecting for you. The WNBA then fined two other head coaches $1,000 each for publicly supporting Cheryl Reeve's statement. Who were those two coaches? Stephanie White of the Indiana Fever and Becky Hammon of the Las Vegas Aces. That's right. Both coaches in the center of this Game 5 firestorm were already on record and had paid the price for agreeing that the league's officiating was a systemic problem. The coach of the team that benefited from the calls and the coach of the team that was victimized by them were united in their belief that the system was broken. This wasn't a case of one team being salty. It was a league-wide rebellion against incompetence, and Game 5 was simply the ugliest manifestation of the problem they had all been screaming about. So let's put the pieces on the table. When you hear Aja Wilson specifically name the special whistle, and you know that both head coaches in that game had already been punished for calling out bad officiating, it changes everything. What do you think? Was Aja's comment just a heat-of-the-moment jab? Or was it the final admission that proved the whole system is corrupt? Let me know your theory in the comments below. This unified front from the coaches, combined with a star player giving the problem a name, created the perfect storm. And the fallout was immediate and catastrophic for the league's credibility. The Las Vegas Aces clawed their way to a 107-98 overtime victory, advancing to the WNBA Finals for a chance to win a historic third consecutive title. But nobody was talking about their accomplishment. The victory was completely overshadowed by what many fans and analysts considered one of the most poorly officiated and controversial playoff games in recent memory. The narrative wasn't about the Aces dynasty, it was about the league's integrity. Social media erupted with hashtags calling the game rigged, with furious fans creating viral compilation videos of missed calls and demanding accountability from the league office. The incredible on-court stories like Odyssey Sims' heroic 27 points on a hardship contract, or Lexie Hull battling through a back injury, were buried under an avalanche of outrage directed at the referees. And this is why Aja Wilson's comment was so pivotal. It wasn't just a slip of the tongue, it was a narrative accelerant. Before she spoke, the fan base was just angry about bad calls, a vague and subjective complaint that the league could easily dismiss as the gripes of a losing team. But Aja gave the injustice a name. She called it the special whistle. For those of us who analyze these narratives, this is a textbook example of how language shapes reality. The special whistle is a perfect encapsulation of the problem. It implies a conscious, preferential choice, not just a random mistake. It's a term that's easy to understand, impossible to forget, and it perfectly captured the feeling of systemic bias that fans were witnessing. In one frustrated comment, Aja Wilson had unintentionally handed her opponents the single sharpest weapon to use against the league. She validated their anger and legitimized their complaints in a way no fan-made video ever could. She was called out not just for her hypocrisy, but for accidentally authoring the very term that would come to define the entire scandal. So, when we filter out all the noise and connect every dot, the picture becomes painfully clear. The controversial end to Game 5 wasn't just the product of a few bad calls. It was the inevitable eruption of a systemic crisis that the league's own coaches on both sides of the court had already risked fines to expose. And at the center of it all is Aja Wilson's accidental confession. Her special whistle comment is the smoking gun, not because it was malicious, but because it was an honest admission of a broken system. It proves that the feeling of a rigged game wasn't just fan paranoia. It was a reflection of a reality that the players themselves acknowledge, but only when the whistle isn't blowing in their favor. Her own words didn't just expose a moment of hypocrisy, they validated the outrage of the very fans whose team she had just eliminated. So what's your take on all this? We want to hear your final verdict. Who bears the most responsibility for this officiating crisis? The referees themselves, the players who only complain when it benefits them, or the WNBA leadership for letting the problem fester? Drop your detailed opinion in the comments below. And if you believe, like we do, that the story is never that simple, make sure you subscribe and ring that notification bell. We are constantly tracking these evolving narratives, and you'll be the first to know when we uncover the next big story. Finally, if you know another fan who's caught up in the headlines, share this video with them. Every narrative analyst deserves the full story behind the special whistle.